Hello, thanks for joining this session. So I was looking at what's the best way of starting a session like this. Many best practices given. One is apparently asking a question, but I'm going to share a question. So a question that I used to ask as a CT scan question during my hiring sessions. People will say, I developed this solution, we use this framework, we created this. And my question used to be, did it go live? If it went live, what was your experience? I think the answers to that were very revealing. Do try it, and I'll be happy to hear your experience trying that. Just ask, did it go live? Now, why should we ask if it went live? Because there's a very high difference between the number of projects that people are trying versus the number of projects that are finally going live. Right? So let's start by looking at the current state of adoption of GenAI and then the phases through which organizations can go through while trying to adopt GenAI. In each of these phases, I'm just going to select one or two risks that people have reported, mostly from academic research, also trade journals, and some best practices. And hopefully I've squeezed in some time for a couple of questions towards the end. So there's so much interest around GenAI. People think it will do their work, cook breakfast, and drop them at office, and when they are free, entertain them also. That's the kind of expectation. Interest levels are high, trillions of dollars being budgeted for capex. Estimated 300 billion jobs are going to be impacted. Non-IT leaders, business leaders are saying 6.5% of their budget is being put aside for GenAI projects. It is hurting the IT services business, and that has been reported on popular news. So the interest levels are obvious, which is why all of us are here. So why it is of interest, that's also obvious. But what is holding up the progress? Right? There are many factors that are holding up the progress, but if we just look at the most rolled up one, which is challenge in articulating value. Now you can say this is so obvious, how come people cannot articulate value? It's not that it is good or bad, it is good and bad at what cost, at what risk. So if you look at the risk side, how the content is getting generated, the provenance of data, who owns the data, IP of what it generates, what comes out, and possible biases, risk of hallucination. These things rolled up is coming in the way of full speed surging ahead. Right? So if that is the situation, then what are the ways by which people can still go ahead and make the most of it? So I'm just going to rapidly run through these stages. Many of us are familiar with these stages. I'm not here to preach about basics, but just to draw our attention to some of the important points that research is pointing to. So whether it is Gen AI or AI or digital or any major initiative in an organization, without sponsorship, it dies a very quiet death. So why is it that executive sponsorship is even a topic to be discussed? It should be counterintuitive, right? So there are many factors cited, and this was my PhD thesis, by the way, how sponsors can enable project success. Right? Mine was on specifically business analytics, but a lot of it rolls over to Gen AI also. So, and I interviewed like dozens of exec sponsors, projects which went bad, projects which succeeded. First and foremost, most commonly seen thing is they see it as a tech initiative, and that kills their interest. The next one is they are somehow not convinced. They think organizational culture will be affected, or they're not convinced. It could be the risk or whatever else, right? Two rolled up factors why executive sponsors hold back support. Right? Now, assuming an organization gets through this stage, then where do they go? They go to creating awareness. AI fluency is a nice way of calling the same thing. At all levels of organizations, there should be fluency. But I'm not interested in the rank and masses. I'm interested in the executives. Why? Because that's where for each arc of effort you put in, the ROI is highest. And unfortunately, it is downplayed. Traditionally, what people did is classroom sessions, some maybe workshops, maybe a couple of conferences like this. All that is nice provided the scale of transformation, depth of transformation is like olden days. But with the kind of risk and depth of transformation we are talking about here, it's much better if the executives get hands-on. Right? I'm not I'm ignoring the implications of what I'm saying. Unlike olden days, you have no-code platforms, you have immersive experiences possible even for traditional executives. Right? And I do conduct those sessions. It's very good, very effective. I'll just draw an example of one very powerful insight I had during my Wipro days. Our travel desk had people that would book tickets for us, but they themselves had never traveled before. Okay? I think the rest of the story is obvious, right? So if you're an executive driving transformation, you yourselves haven't seen it, I think you're like the travel desk guy sending us, and they didn't understand the issues that we face. So I'm also going to dwell on it a little bit more. Executives should get hands-on, very hands-on, probably do a small project on their own, deploy it, use it. Because the issues that GenAI is holding interest on, the issues, the risks that we are seeing now, are not about how to build solutions. It's about what happens after you go live. Right? So if as an exec, I have very little awareness of what happens there, personal, direct, intimate experience. Right? And wherever we see any of this being done, the adoption rates are very high, ROI is very different, organizational transformation is good. There's a very classic research that says when an executive does something, it sends out what is called as a signal. It's called signaling, power signaling. Right? Organization orchestration is much better after that. So AI fluency also helps us with better selection of projects. We'll see some of those later. All the rest of the slides, please see it as how AI fluency will enable that. Right? That's the message. So what is holistic enablement? Every project should have a sponsor, an identified business sponsor, formally allocated resources, success criteria, and enablement. Right? So assuming the AI fluency sessions in the organizations takes them through this stage, then we need to have pilot projects selected. One mistake is selecting a single project saying we will give this our best. You can give it your best, but what if the project selected had its own interfaces, unique issues which didn't pan out? Then you're defeating the business case for GenAI with that, right? So not too many projects, not one, a sweet spot, right? Goldilocks, like 3. Now how to select projects? There are many frameworks available. I've just pasted something here which is very simple, easy to understand. Balance risk and value. Non-trivial, business relevant pilots are highly suggested. Now imagine the organization goes through pilots and now people say, okay, let's do more projects. What's a good practice that has emerged based on research? Setting up a cross-functional panel, inviting proposals from employees and evaluating it for strategic alignment. That seems to be the best practice across board for selecting projects and building a portfolio. Now let's say you built a project portfolio. So how does it actually then get deployed? How does it get accepted? So there are a variety of factors. My research found about 14 of them. I'm trying to roll it to 3 broad areas. One is address concerns head on. Don't let them linger. Job concerns, compliance concerns, data providence concerns. These on the last day can also kill a project. Right? Then organizational culture has to be incubated. Organizational culture pretty much comes down to the leader. It might be an overstatement, but I've seen enough organizations to tell you that when the leader does something, it sets the tone for organizational culture. Right? Research also says that. What kind of work culture are we talking about? Experimentation, agile mindset, ability to understand stochastic solutions and not treat them as deterministic. It's a fundamental shift that has to be done. Okay? So, and then integrate the solutions into the business processes so it is not a silo. So once this is done, an organization is sort of set for taking off. At this stage, there are many frameworks available. Some talk about AI maturity models, etc., etc. But I found this to be very intuitive. This is not a project level framework. This is a more enterprise level framework. Start by using AI as a tool. Improve productivity. You'll increase your data infrastructure, maturity of governance, talent, trust in AI. And once a certain level of maturity is reached, that's a good time to take it to the next level where AI has now the potential to play a monitoring role, alerts, improvement areas, suggestions, things like that. Then step it up to making AI as a coach. There are organizations which have gone through all of these 4 stages, and the staged approach seems to have worked out very nicely because at each stage you're ready for the level of risk that that stage brings in. The last stage would be something like humans doing what they are best at, AI doing what's best at. Right? A robo in a factory producing BMW cars, for example, could be a great example, or an autonomous car. Right? So it's reached that stage. This could be an organizational level approach or a business process level approach, but a staged approach. So we are not overreaching and engaging risk at that level.
Professor, your time's up.
Can I finish?
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So, can I squeeze in one question at least?
Yes, yes.
You gave
Definitely.
me 10 minutes, but mine was 15 minutes.
Sure.
Rahul took 5 minutes extra.
Okay. So you can buy it back from him. Thank you so much, Professor. We will definitely take one question. Whoever from the audience wants to ask, please go ahead.
Hi, it was a great session. But one thing which did confirm me right from the beginning, so is that we should target at outcomes, right? So there should be a ROI, and so it discourages the experimental mindset, right? It reduces fear of failure. What if I try something and it doesn't work out?
So you see, the first step hence is fluency. Without fluency, if you go through the other steps, these things happen. The more you invest in fluency, people will understand the nature of what they're getting into. This is the fundamental step. So when you go through fluency step, you make people understand that this is stochastic. You are going to be proposing hypothesis and testing. Live project from about the 40 odd that I have studied in my research. An organization proposes a hypothesis. This comes from Middle East. The hypothesis fails. The entire IT team thought they had failed. Then the CEO went and explained to the person, that the IT head, that the hypothesis didn't work according to the data that we had. But the data didn't support the hypothesis. That doesn't mean anything for you. You understand the nature of how we do experiments. And that's a great example of what happens when fluency was invested in. If we embark on a journey on AI without doing that, then these kind of things happen. Okay? So don't skip the steps.